Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the patch notes and the support tier list for 26.2. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check out the stream. We're streaming most nights, usually around 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, that's it. Come by, check us out. We'd love to see you. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Okay, so they have a couple of thoughts on just how the meta has shaped up, and it's been a little bit different than I thought. So we'll get in here because there were so many changes. The Phaelites, I guess they're fine. It does give a lot of vision. It does make it kind of hard to gank bot lane or just any lane, and that's something that I mentioned before. Is I thought this meta was going to be super lane dominant, which it kind of is. More on that in a second in terms of game times. But it does make it harder to gank. So they're thinking in 16.3 of perhaps changing that a little bit so that ganks, could maybe happen a bit earlier. So, I mean, it doesn't affect major gank paths too much early. Like if you try to run down river, it does take that away in bot lane. But if you do a traditional just coming through the tri-bush, they're going to see you in about the same amount of time anyways as just a normal bush or a normal ward in that pixel bush. It does make it a lot harder to sneak dragons unless you have control of that, but the team that has control of it probably has priority anyways, and so trying to sneak a dragon when you don't have priority and dragons are so hard to kill is kind of risky anyway. So I'm not really convinced that it's affecting too much of the games anyways, but okay, let's get into this. So this is affecting games, the game length thing here. Now, snowballing. I don't think snowballing is a very prominent thing. I think there was even more snowballing last season, potentially. It was like you could snowball, but then you could also get back into the game easier last season with all of the objectives, objective bounties, all that kind of stuff. So they're saying come in, and they're not looking any higher than last season for average play and lower. Game times are slightly longer. Game times are long as hell in my experience so far this semester. Slightly longer, my butt. Like last time it felt like 25 to 30 minutes. This time it feels like 35 to 40 at least. Like so many of my games. Let me just see here. I forgot. Let me see if it has the game times here. I could have looked this up before the stream, but I didn't think about it until just now. We had a good start, then we had a very rocky bit when I wasn't playing Recon. More on that in a little bit. Does it say? Okay, so 24 minutes, 22 minutes. Those are okay. But then this is 45 minutes. I don't even know if I had a 45-minute game the entire last season. 45, 39, 44, 26, 47, 34, 31, 23, 29, 24, 31, 38, or 28, 35, 29, 31. So to me, I'm not averaging all these out. 38, 46, 37, 36, 28, 33, 36. There's not a lot of these 20 to 25 minute games. And there are definitely a lot that are 30 to 35, and there are quite a few that are over 35. 29, 28, 31, 31, 30, 38, 29, 33. So to me, this feels a lot longer. It's not going to show my past histories from last season, I think. But it is significant. I mean, just eyeballing that, again, it feels like it's 35 average. 33 to 35 versus last season. Again, it was probably 25 to 30. So it is definitely very, very noticeable that it takes forever to end games because the objectives are a lot worse. They just kind of suck now. Like, you can still get soul. I've lost with soul. I've beaten people with soul. Like, it's still good to have that, but it's just not as game ending. Same thing with Baron. The buff is about the same, but you get a lot less gold, and the power level is just lower, especially now that ADCs can get to 6 items and top laners can get to level 20. It just feels like the buffs are even weaker in potentially really late game. And just that the towers have so many plates and just take forever to kill towers. You know, stuff that would be game-ending pushes just don't end the game. There's been multiple games I've had 2, even 3 inhibitors down before, and we're trying to walk it in with our team, and we can't get on their towers. I forgot if they nerfed minions at all, but it feels like they just get cleared so easily, and more minions come out, so there's just constantly like more minions just coming out just to block, so that your minions, you know, just can't spend a lot of time on the towers. So to me, at least anecdotally, it feels like the games are way longer most of the time. If you're honestly closing it, if you're completely snowballing and they surrender, that's usually how the 20-minute wins happen. It doesn't typically happen organically from you actually killing their nexus. It's 25 minutes. Okay, hitting towers and getting chunks of damage can feel more rewarding. I think it feels a lot less rewarding because it takes forever to kill the towers and the games don't end. And less downtime with more... There's more downtime. There's a lot of downtime. I don't know what they're talking about because there's nothing to do. Like, without Atacon being there and a lot of these objectives just like not mattering, there's like so many times there's like, well, I guess we gotta wait 5 or 6 minutes for Baron. We can't do anything else. We certainly can't siege those towers. So we're just kind of hanging out waiting, versus it felt like last season there's just a lot more to do. If you can't tell, I was a much bigger fan of last season. I think this season will be fine. Last season started off rough too, and they balanced stuff. It's fine. I'm still enjoying the game. It's fine, but I really do like kind of the faster pace, more objectives, more team fight oriented stuff rather than just these ARAM sieges. And yeah, you can split push, but like split push is really annoying because it requires your team to actually have a brain and be coordinated, which is not great in solo queue. Versus with all the objectives, I feel like you have so much more power as a support, especially because you can just get down vision, people go there, and a lot of people understand. You engage on somebody who's checking that vision and you kill them. Like, that's easy to understand, right? When you're split pushing, it's hard for people to understand that. Like, oh, I need to buy my own control wards as a top laner so I can, you know, protect myself while I'm split pushing. Or, hey, there's nobody on the map. If you don't have that vision, they're probably coming for me. I should back off. Or, hey, our split pusher is taking their tower right now, but they rotated their top lane down to us. Don't get in range of that Malphite that's about to hard engage on you, right? And then someone on your 4 group gets engaged on. So, I do not like this split push style of play. I mean, it does empower top lane. Top laners have been crying forever about not being relevant. And now they're the most overpowered role in the game because of the role buffs, the quest buffs, but also just because it favors things like split pushing. But anyways, okay, and then Barons are being taken earlier. Well, yeah, because there's no Atacon. The objectives are also very difficult to take. Now, they have way more effective health, Dragons and Baron. They give less rewards, and Baron just does a lot more damage too. It's just a lot more dangerous. Now, if you get like flipped, even if you get the Baron and they get like 3 kills out of it, they're probably ahead. Versus before, you know, they'd really have to ace you to make the Baron not worth it most of the time. Now, if they just get 3, maybe even 2 kills, if one of them's a shutdown, they're going to be getting more gold than you. So anyways, that said, Baron takes are a bit weaker than before. A bit. 50% weaker. Now, yes, you do get towers and you get old Baron buff and stuff like that, but it's a lot weaker. Instead of 1,500 gold, you're getting 750. That's like less than plates, I think. Like, if you take 5 plates on a tier 2 and the tier 2 tower, you're getting way more gold than that. Even 5 plates on a tier 1 tower. So games don't typically end after a Baron push, yes. But a lot of that is down to the towers being ridiculous and minions being very weak, more so than this gold, not being able to cash in the gold. But the gold is a big deal. Yeah, it's too weak. They need to either make the buff stronger, make Baron weaker so he's easier to take, or make it worth more gold. You can't change all 3 of those knobs at once. in my opinion. Make it harder to take and more dangerous to take. Make it less rewarding, both in terms of the gold and in terms of the buff and the push, which it feels like they've done all of those. So a lot of games are just who gets caught, you know, most of the time, instead of like who actually coordinates and sets up and gets objectives. Aegis of Valor, okay, the AFK thing or whatever, that seems to be fine. I haven't seen a lot of people throwing games because they're off-roll just because they know they're not going to lose LP or whatever. It seems fine. Roll balance. You guys know, like, stop trolling. You know top lane's OP, right? Like, everybody knows that. The top lane's the most impactful role by a mile right now. I think the other roles are, like, all pretty reasonable, but top lane's just, like, a little out of line. I think they need to nerf it a little bit. I just remember early on in the season, we had a Sivir on our team. We went 8-0 in lane, and there's a top laner, I think it was a Renekton, that got 3 kills. He did well. He got his first tower. He was kind of beating his person top. He had 3 kills. He was 5 levels higher than the Sivir that had 8 kills. It's like, you can't even do anything else. Like, I get it, you're splitting XP, but like, now, the Sivir didn't have the best positioning and things like that, but the Renekton was on like 1.5 items, and the Sivir was on 3 when they clash, and the Renekton absolutely smoked the Sivir. And it's like, I get it, you know, that type of champion, bruiser, is supposed to be good in ADCs, but it's like the power level is just ridiculous in top laners, even if you're doing everything well, exceptionally well, right? So the Sivir was like 8 kills up, or plus 5 kills, 8 total, up like 50 CS or something, and it just like didn't matter. Now, I do think that ADCs can be really strong if it's the right ADC in the right situation. And I'm not saying that ADC is like super weak. I think it's fine if you're playing a meta ADC. I just think the top lane is just out of control, especially tanks. They need to do something about tanks. Now, I don't know what it is. Just giving them a bunch of levels. Kale is another one that's broken. Like, there's a certain chance Kale, Ornn, things like that that scale really well with levels are problematic. But something about tanks in general, so either nerf the tank items or like buff the anti-tank items, which maybe that's better. So maybe make the Lord Dominic's, the Giant Slayer, maybe make that do more percentage, or like do more damage if they have more HP or something like that. So either buff Doms, Blade of the Ruined King, or create some other sort of anti-tank item. I think Kraken used to do that. I don't think it does that anymore, which is something that can at least give ADC some anti-tank stuff. Buff Leandry's, max health damage. Just buff the anti-tank stuff or nerf tank items. And a lot of times it's not even items, though. It's just the levels and just the stats that they have on it. It's not like any particularly super OP item. They're just really good in this meta. Okay, tower durability. While we've seen many comments about turret squishiness, who the hell's saying that? Many metrics aren't suggesting any urgent issues. Yeah, they take too long to kill. Especially base towers. Like, you can win a fight and sometimes, you know, almost ace them, kill 4 people with an exposed base tower, and you won't be able to take it before the people respawn just because of the plates and how difficult it is to kill them. So you can't even get an inhibitor off of a near ace in the mid game. Okay. Support quest usability. Okay, yeah, so the key binding is weird, but whatever. Just this is not a pressing issue. Just change a hotkey. It's annoying, but I got used to it. Okay, champions. They're trying to make Aatrox into a jungler a little bit more. Fine. Ashe, small buff. That's probably fine. I don't know. It just seems really weird. Like, she seems fine. She is what she is. I think that she should do less damage overall than the really, like, straight damage people, because she has so much utility, right? She's got her arrow, she's got her hawk shot, she's got slow. She should do a little bit less damage than, like, Jinx, you know, late game. Okay, Gwen getting a little nerf. She's fine. I haven't seen a ton of Gwen. I think she's, like, obviously she's strong if she gets several items and levels and things like that. I think people are mostly playing her in the jungle, though. But I don't know. I didn't think she's that big of an issue. Where is she? Okay. I mean, she's 55% win rate. Maybe people just aren't playing her well, or I just haven't played enough games to see her a ton. She is pretty good with Dusk and Dawn. Fine. Jace. Now, Jace in solo queue is usually pretty bad, but in pro play, he's been kind of taken over in the jungle. So that's fair. Nerfing Lilia again. I think she has seemed fine, but Malphite definitely nerfed this. This dude is just way too strong. A lot of tank. It's not just Malphite though. It's like Malphite, Scion, Ornn. Those are kind of the three main offenders that are coming to mind that are just like ridiculous. Cho'Gath can be strong if he gets the right build, if he doesn't get baited into going AP Cho'Gath. But really it's Scion, Malphite, and Ornn. Okay, so it's a little weird they're just nerfing Malphite, but alright, so less monster damage, Ground Slam, costs a little bit more mana. For the lane, does 40 less damage, okay. And then Unstoppable Force is, 20 more seconds later. I think this is fine. I think he'll still be playable. I mean, he kind of is what he is. You don't trade with this that often. This is sort of an all-in tool. So, I mean, I guess maybe it hits your wave clear a little bit. I think he'll still be alright. Buffing Yi a little bit. That's probably fine. He's not that great right now. It's a little weird they're nerfing Nunu. I just don't feel like this champ is that strong. He's okay. I mean, he is good at taking monsters right now. And again, a lot of those monsters are, a lot harder to kill. But for Nunu, he actually can still take them pretty quickly with his Q. And then... So I guess that's fine. I don't think he needed a nerf, but okay. Sivir was one of the best ADCs with Essence Reaver, so I think that's fine. Nerf her a little bit. Smolder was surprisingly really strong. I wasn't expecting that with Smolder, but with the Essence Reaver and just game times taking forever again, you have like more time to stack. Also, there are more minions coming out, so she can stack a lot faster. I think. I know they took off some minions on some waves, but it feels like they come out a lot faster. They definitely spawn way earlier in the game. So, he gets an extra minute and a half, another 2 or 3 waves right out the gate where he can be farming, versus before that was kind of dead time. So he does come online a little bit faster. I mean, I guess it's dead time for everybody. It was, but... I've seen some really bad Smolders, but statistically he's 55%. He's pretty good. If you can stack them all right and you get the right items, he's pretty strong in solo queue. Okay, and then Talia getting a little nerve. She's one of the trifecta of really strong champs in pro. It's like Talia, or it's like Orianna, Azir, or like the top of the top, and then Talia, I think, is like one step down. So it's a little weird if they nerf her without nerfing Azir or Orianna. Now, I don't know their win rates in pro, but I know they're picked a lot. Varus. That's a pretty big buff on that Q, 400. But Poke Varus is not great. I don't know. He can be okay, but like early on, Poke is lane dominant, but the fact that you have the home guards to get back to lane really fast means that it's a lot less devastating if you have to take a back from getting poked. He is getting picked a decent amount in pro. They're buffing the on-hit damage too, by quite a bit. So, I don't know. We'll see. He's interesting. Viego. Now, this is like a mega buff, I'm pretty sure. That's what I've heard. And I think that Viego's already pretty decent in solo queue. Is he that bad? I feel like he's done all right in the games I've seen. I guess, yeah, he's 50%. He's kind of weird because he needs to build squishy, but he's melee, and I really don't like squishy AD melees. Now percentage on hit bonus crit damage is up, so now crit is apparently a lot better on him. So we'll see how that pans out. He's still like, a super snowbally champ, but he could be interesting. Zed has been really strong in the jungle. Okay, so nerfing his jungle speed by a lot, so I'm not sure exactly how much that affects what he does, but that might push him out of jungle. Okay, Bandle Pipes. So this is exactly what I called before. I said this item, was going to be really strong, and I don't remember if I said it in the tier list or if I said it on stream, but super strong item. 2,000 is a ridiculous price. They haven't had something that cheap in a really long time. Like Redemption and things like that came out as 2,100 and very quickly got nerfed to like 2,300. So 2,300 is just the baseline price for a support item. That's it. If it's like an enchanter type of item or just like a team fight sort of item, I think 2,300 is the price. So 2,300 is like basically 3,200 for carries. It's just like that's the normal price of things typically. So yeah, 2,000 on an item that's that strong. I still think it'll be really good. I think the champs that want this are still going to be powerful. I think the fact that you keep this buff up for 8 seconds is crazy, and that you get movement speed on it, and that it gives 30% attack speed to everybody within a massive radius is just crazy. And the stats on it are still pretty good. Like, it has a little bit less magic resist and armor on it, but it has a little bit more ability haste. So I still think it's going to be super good. I think they will probably have to nerf this item again. Maybe not, but I would imagine there's a few things they could do. I think the easiest thing they could do is just take the movement speed off of it, because that doesn't make any sense. It's, an attack speed buff item, so why does it randomly give the user 20 extra movement speed for 8 seconds? So they could easily trim that. I think they could trim the duration on it. 8 seconds is kind of a long time for every piece of CC. I think it would be much more typical to have it be like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Something like that. Or they could nerf the attack speed down to like 20%. I feel would be pretty reasonable. But as it stands, I still think it'll be a strong item. I think it'll be a rush or close to a rush on pretty much any champion that can build it. But this will obviously knock it down, those champs down just a little bit. But I still think they'll be good. Okay, and then Fiend Hunter Bolts. I feel like this is a bait item. It just doesn't have any AD on it. I don't know. I feel like it's underwhelming, but there's a couple of champs where, maybe Twitch or something, where you just really want to hit people. And Twitch can crit multiple people with his ult. So there's a few champs that might want this, but I think a lot of them, it's not going to be that great. Okay. Hex Optics. This item was already pretty good. I think it was sort of underrated. I don't know if you would rush this. But 55 attack damage. It gives like plus 10% total damage. And I think it has crit on it. No attack speed. But, I imagine like a Jhin or a Caitlyn type of champ with this. But I don't know where it would fit into a build. So you don't really rush it first on those champs. So typically you'll either go Collector or Stormrazor. And then Infinity Edge, and then you probably need to get your armor shred item, your DOMs, and then maybe this is like 4th or something. I'm not really sure. Okay, and then you got all the rest of these. Alright, so the tier list. So I was right about Sona. We'll talk about Sona in a little bit. Just overall, I was very wrong about Braum. I was right about Sona. And I was a little bit off on Rakan and Leona. I think they're a bit stronger than I thought. I was off on Karma. She ended up being weaker, significantly weaker last patch than I thought. I think most people thought Karma was going to be, amazing. And then Senna has a new build that kind of snuck up that we'll talk about. But that was kind of, just reflecting on last patch. Okay, so this patch. Rakan back on top, in my opinion. If we look at... And let it be known, I had him as tier 2 last time. He's not always the very top. But I'll talk about some of my experiences. Obviously, pro play is not exactly the same as solo queue, but it does point to the potential of champs if you play them at a high level. Okay, so the major outliers in pro right now that are really overperforming, you've got Nico, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and you've got Rakan. Rakan at 67%. He's picked quite a bit. 4th most picked champion, 67% win rate. The only people above him in pick rate are Alistar at 51%, Nautilus at 40%, Rel at 44%. And then directly after him, you've got Leona at 42. So why is Rakan doing so well? I think there's a few reasons. So I guess we can do Lolalytics Rakan as well. First of all, he's a great Vandal Pipes user. So he doesn't personally benefit a ton from a lot of the attack speed. But he can auto-attack in there. If he has Xayah with him, obviously you get a little bit more value out of that. Oh, this is 16. It's already updated 16.2. Let's go back to 16.1. So we just get more stats you can see. But he's a good Vandal Pipes user, so you can get that early. He really likes the movement speed. The 20 movement speed whenever you CC somebody is really nice. It's good on your ult, obviously, but it's also good just for his playstyle of getting away from things. So now, even if you just W and knock somebody up, you get 8 seconds of, an extra 20 movement speed, which is a big deal when you're trying to run away from people if you just ward it or someone's trying to catch you out. Or even if you're just trying to run in and help out a situation, where somebody's just getting caught and they're in YOLO queue and you want to go in and see if you can turn it around. You can go in, shield in, W, knock them up, see what you can do. If the situation's going south, you can usually run away and find somebody else, to E back out, or sometimes just outrun people that are coming to try to get you. So that movement speed is a very big deal. It's really good on Rakan overall. They also gave some buffs, significant buffs to Zeke's. Now, I haven't built this that much, but this is fairly popular in Pro, and it's pretty popular in solo queue as well. They gave it this new passive, and I said this would be like a good option on Rakan, where you get an extra 15 ultimate ability haste on top of this. So the stat line on this thing is really good. Effectively, then, you get 300 health, which is 200 more than Locket or Vandal Pipes. You get 25-25 on the armor magic resist, which is good. And then you effectively get 25 ability haste on your ultimate, which is really nice. And then 10 on everything else. And then the passive's just kind of whatever. It is nice. It's not going to do very much damage. A lot of times whenever you're ulting in, you're going to lose 1 or 2 seconds of damage that you could be ticking on somebody. But an extra 30% slow that can last for 5 seconds is pretty good in a YOLO queue environment, right? Where you're constantly running around, helping people out who are getting caught, counter ganking, assisting with split pushes, in team fights, just peeling these tanks or bruisers that are trying to run at your ADC. The little slow can be helpful. So you've got that option. Redemption, you can still go that if you want to. It's a little bit riskier, but that hurts the enchanters probably more than it hurts Rakan, so he has like other options that he can get. And then Locket, still going to be a good Locket user. So he has 3 different items now that you can get. So he's got a lot of versatility. With Vandal Pipes to help all your auto attackers, you almost always want this. But then you've got Zeke's if you want to just roam around and try to make picks, just take advantage of the YOLO queue. Locket for team fighting. Then you've got Knight's Vow to protect someone that's really fed on your team. Popular item. So he's just really versatile. That's just kind of like the overall story of Rakan. He's versatile. Yes, he's not lane dominant, which is why I put him down a little bit in my tier list last time. But it doesn't matter as much. Like the lane quests, almost everybody gets their quests about at the same time, even if you're losing lane. As long as you're not like chain feeding, that's helpful. And just that versatility is so important because now junglers, it's kind of hard to describe, but you don't really know what's going to happen in a lot of these games, or at least I have a hard time, knowing it, because junglers, they might go top, they might go bottom, they might go mid, you don't know. But Rakan is so good at the weak side. So if your jungler just wants to camp top lane, because sometimes it's the correct play to camp your top lane, because top lane is the most powerful role right now, and you want your top laner snowballed if you can get it. If they have like a carry split pusher, especially top, you want that person snowballed. Versus if it's like a tank top, you might be able to leave them alone, just let them fall behind and gank some other lane. But it just feels like there's just a lot more volatility with the jungler. But, Rakan can handle that, right? If you're weak-sided, if you're not getting any jungler help, or if the enemy jungler is camping you, you can get away with that. He's one of the best at escaping. He can get allies out fairly easily too. And then you can heal people through difficult lanes. So if your ADC picks Ezreal and you're into Lux, Caitlyn, or whatever, you can kind of heal through it with your Q. And just in team fights, the reliability of that R to hit multiple people is just so big. Like, you're going to CC people. Usually 2 or 3 people in a team fight. Like, there's no question you're going to get them. Even if they have a lot of mobility or whatever, you're going to get a lot of people. And you have a lot of ways to protect, targets with all your shields, right? Your double shield is really high. Your Guardian is really high. And then I've been getting this Slay a lot more recently as well, just to give people that extra movement speed and the heal. Sometimes you need it, like if you're going to get bursted out, you might still need Celestial Opposition. But I feel like, I don't know, so a lot of times it just seems like there's a lot less kind of burst overall. Again, there are some situations where you might, want that still. But if you want to help your allies out, the Slay Ride is good. And especially in kind of this YOLO queue again, where you're running around, there's just all of this skirmishing instead of just 5v5 fights all the time. Just even that movement speed, just being able to speed an ally up for 20 seconds to get away from a gank or to run down somebody can be really helpful. So I think that's good. They did buff Guardian a little while back. This is kind of his go-to. Just, again, really good at protecting people. Now, some people are getting the Unsealed Spellbook still, and I think that's a viable build, but especially if you're in a losing lane, which still happens a lot, you can get away with, Guardian helps out more. Now, I like Demolish over Font of Life. It's not quite as strong as I thought it would be last time, but it's still, pretty good. You'll probably have some opportunities to proc this throughout the game. Conditioning is also good. They nerfed Second Wind by quite a bit. A while back, it used to be a flat 5 health, I think, plus 4% missing. So especially early game, just doesn't offer as much as it used to. So conditioning can be good for later. That's 300, basically at 12 minutes, 300 and change gold worth of resistances. So that's good. And then I have been liking Unflinching, especially if you're against a hard CC type lane. It can be good. Revitalize is a little bit less good now that you're probably not going to be going the Redemption Locket early. You're probably going to be getting Vandal Pipes, something else. And you can still get Overgrowth if you want, but I think Unflinching is pretty helpful, especially if you want to go Slay, right? So if you're going this Slay, you're going to be a little bit squishier personally than if you had Celestial Opposition, but if you have Conditioning plus Unflinching, that might give you enough resistances to last. Also, the fact that you're probably going something like Vandal Pipes early instead of a Redemption early is going to give you more resistances as well than what you had last season. So all of those combined kind of open up and allow you to take Slay to help your teammates out a little bit more. So anyways, Rakan really good. Again, the main thing here is just versatility. Just, if your team needs hard engage, you can do that. You need to peel, you can do that. You want to run around and do some YOLO queue and pick people off while you have nothing to do for 5 minutes between Barons, you can do that. He can get really good vision. He can destroy enemy vision. Just a very useful, versatile champ. And I really miss not having him. When I was trying to play other stuff, on the stream, obviously, Rakan came through, right? The 59% win rate on Rakan. Everything else is looking bad. Leona is like 50% still. And, some people pointed out on stream, they're like, oh, well, you're just used to Rakan. I'm like, that's true, but when I'm trying to take vision, but I'm like, oh, I can't do that, or I try to engage and the enemy doesn't follow up, it makes me want to pull my hair out because I'm like, why didn't you follow up when I play Leona? Versus with Rakan, if you go in for an engage, but someone doesn't follow up for whatever reason, you can still get out with your E. You're like, well, it sucks they didn't do that, but at least I'm not dead, right? And it's like, yes, it's because I'm used to Rakan, but it's also because Rakan can do that, right? It's not just a feel or a vibe. It's like his kit allows him to do these things that other champions just can't do, right? Like you can put in deeper, riskier wars. You can clear vision when other champs couldn't clear vision. You can engage from a screen away by double jumping to your allies. You just have really reliable engage. You can get away from things that other champs are not going to be able to get away from. So the list just goes on and on and on. But it's just kind of a great blend of engage type of champ that's also an enchanter that can protect, that scales pretty well into these later games, right? Like Leona's good earlier, and we'll talk about her in a second, but she's a lot of like single target, like lockdown CC. But later in the game, if they get Mercury Treads or other kind of tenacity stuff, or especially this happened a lot, if they have one of those big tanks and they're all grouped up and you hard engage, even if you get their backline, the ADC, there's been times where I go in, I get the ADC, and then there's just a Malphite, you know, on their front line just staring at my team, and nobody follows up because they're all afraid to get Malphite ulted. And it's just infuriating as a support. So, yes, Rakan is not going to hard scale as much later on into the game in terms of his enchanter qualities as something like a Sona or a Soraka, but he's going to scale a lot harder than a Leona or a Nautilus later on into the game, because at least he has some shields. And he can opt into more teamfight items. He can still get redemption if he wants to. I mean, you could even get Ardent Sensor if you really wanted to double down on the attack speed for your backline. That's unusual, but you could. Anyways, Rakan is great. I doubted him on the last patch a little bit, knocking him into tier 2, but I was wrong. He's still top tier. Okay, Braum. Braum has really been the breakout champ of this patch, and there's a chance I could have to go. We'll see. Let me open up this window here. I got some people coming in for some chimney maintenance, but they said it was between 10 and 11, so it'll probably be closer to 11. We'll see how much of this I can get through. I'll go a little bit faster through these. So Braum really took off because he's so good with Vandal Pipes. That's pretty much the story of Braum. So he has like a 55% win rate or something in this patch, and he's good against most other champs that like Vandal Pipes, with the exception of Rakan. His win rate against Rakan is still okay, but Rakan is historically very good against Braum because he can just kind of ignore the shield and just CC everyone on the enemy team. But yeah, he's going to be very good into Leona, Nautilus. I guess those are like the two major ones. Other tanks, just stuff that just wants to sit around and just trade punches. He's good. Obviously good against enemy ADCs when he throws the shield up. A lot of them, especially like a Misfortune or someone else that has like a really powerful AoE ult. My main sort of qualm with Braum, and a lot of enchanters, and people ask me this, he doesn't have access to the back line very easily. So that means that you are hoping that your ADC picks something and can execute to match the output of the enemy ADC. Because if your team has an Ezreal and they have a Jinx and it gets to like 4 items, you don't have a way to deal with that, right? Like, hopefully your team has a Zed or something like that, but or just something that can get on that Jinx, because you're not going to get on her probably. So that's like the major issue with a lot of these peeler types of champs. If you don't have a way to shut up their backline and they just have a higher scaling backline and they're grouped up, it's a big problem. So that's really one of the only issues with Braum, is he's great in front to back team fights. You can just sit there and just shield stuff and CC people. You know, he's going to be really good. This item is also very good on a lot of the hard engaged tanks, the Protoplasm Harness. Now, I haven't gotten this on Rakan. Usually you don't need it, but if for some reason you are just getting completely nuked by stuff, it could be an option. But especially on anything that has like HP scaling, this is really good. So Braum's Q does additional damage based on your max HP. And then if he, you know, stays alive and is able to put up one more shield or jump away with his W, he can be really good. So I do think that Rakan is really good, or Braum is really good. My win rate with him is not stellar, but again, I haven't played him for a ton of games, so I'm sure I'm making all kinds of mistakes. But really good peeler. He does have some mobility. He can jump around. He can shield. Glacial Fissure's like okay, CC. Really good early game skirmishing. So especially if you have someone who can auto attack, you know, pretty quickly, Lucian's, you know, the big one, but just other stuff early on that can throw down a bunch of auto attacks or chain CC with you, he can be pretty good. So I still think he's going to be good. Again, they're nerfing Vandal Pipes, but I still think he'll be a good champion overall. In Pro, he's a little bit less impressive but he's not bad, right? It's like 49%. But in solo queue, he's 55%, so he's definitely very, very good. And Bandle Pipes really are the breakout item. I thought that the changes to Helia were really going to be the super defining thing, but it's really the Bandle Pipes. Helia hasn't been that great on most champs, with a couple of exceptions. We'll talk about here in a second. Okay, Leona. All right, let me open this door. Let me take off my headset here and open this door just in case. Give me 1 second. Make sure that dude didn't pull in over here. Okay. Because I'm not sure. Sometimes these utility or like these service people will pull up just out the window of my driveway and I can see it, and sometimes they pull around to the front and I don't see it. So I just need to make sure I can hear the doorbell. Anyways, okay, Leona, very good. Just talked about her a second ago. Very good Bandle Pipe user. Very good Protoplasm Harness in particular. Is really nice on her because you get a lot of extra healing based on your bonus armor and magic resist. And if you take Aftershock, or if your Aftershock is going off when this ticks below, which is probably not happening, you're probably not getting deleted that fast. But if your Aftershock is going off, or if your W is up and you're getting bonus armor and magic resist off your W, then there's a good chance that's going to be up. Then you get a lot of bonus healing. It's plus 250% of your bonus armor and your bonus magic resist gets converted over to healing. And Braum with his W gets a little bit of that, but Leona's is a lot off her W. So Leona's probably the best, like, all-in, hard engage, single target lockdown uptime support in the game. Right, like her cooldowns are very low. Her ultimate is like a 90-second cooldown. Her E, you can get it down to like a 5 or a 6 second cooldown. I think her Q is a 5-second cooldown. So especially once you start getting ability haste, getting those things closer to like 4 seconds, you can almost perma-lock somebody down and just stay on top of them. So she's very, very good at that. Her damage early is also pretty good. You know, and so I think Bandle Pipe, Harness, and then either Locket, if they have a lot of auto attackers, Frozen Heart could potentially be alright too, as a niche thing. If you want to do more magic damage, you get Abyssal Mask. So there's a few options. Knight's Vow for single target protection. And she can engage through anything that I mentioned before. So you can go through minion waves, you can go over walls, you can go over people standing, like a tank standing in front of an ADC that you want. So she has some of the best options for getting to that back line. But there's, some problems as well. So I mentioned one of them. If they have a mega tank that can just sit there and stare down your team, like a Malphite, a Scion, or whatever, and just, you can get through him onto the ADC if you hit your ult and then E onto them, but will your team be able to follow up, in front of the Scion or the Malphite? That's the big question. And usually the answer is no. So that's a big problem. If you get counter ganked bottom, that's a big problem. So it's really easy to get baited on Leona, where you go onto the enemy and then all of a sudden the jungler shows up and you're probably going to die. You have to fight your way out of everything. You have no movement speed boosts. You have, no mobility outside of hooking enemies with your E. So you just don't have a lot of answers. So counter ganks are bad. Team fights can be bad later on. And sometimes even if you lock a single target down, like that's kind of all you have. You do have more single target uptime, but whereas like Rakan, if you snap engage and go in, especially if someone else jumps in first, then you can E onto that person, run around a little bit, and then W. Usually you can CC 2 or 3 people for, a second and a half each pretty comfortably around the same time. Like, so everybody CC'd. With Leona, you're only going to be CCing typically one person, right? Like you could hit multiple people with your R, the stun part of it, but it's unlikely unless they're just totally stacked up. So you have more uptime total on your CC, but it just doesn't hit as many people. So she's really good, and at YOLO Q, just running around, locking down, picking off people who are out of position, she's very, very good at that. So if you're ahead, if you're snowballing, if the enemy just has a bunch of squishies and you can just go for anybody and lock down anybody, then she's good. She also can struggle a little bit if they're diving your AD carry. So she has a hard time peeling and protecting like something like a Zed from going off on your AD carry and deleting them, or a Rengar or whatever. She doesn't have any shield. She's not going to take Guardian. So that can be a problem. You can still like stun them, and things like that. But anyway, so she's very good, and I would think she's best into enchanters, because usually you want to shut those things up and kill them ASAP. So like a Sona, if you can hard engage on Sona, or Nami, Senna to some extent. It's a little bit harder to get on people like Janna, maybe Lulu. So some of those types of champs, or just some of these like squishy double range cheese kind of comps, with Lux bottom or Xerath, Vel'Koz, things like that. So she still can be good. You just got to be a little careful, and you got to be pretty confident. Now, obviously, it helps if you have somebody that can kill people in lane, right? So you got a Lucian, a Tristana, something like that. You probably don't want to pair her with like an Ezreal. I did that once. God, that was horrible. Unless you're just planning on leaving the lane and perma roaming, which can work. But anyways, Leona, good Bandlepipe user, and I've kind of got her at the top here. Again, she's kind of an extreme case, but I think if you do want the hard engage, she's good. Be careful with Braum. Braum is a nightmare matchup. The Rakan matchup is like, okay, there's just a lot of factors that go into that, but it's playable. But the Braum feels pretty unplayable, so just be careful with that. And then Sona. So Sona, especially lower elos, if she goes unchecked, is pretty much what I described last time. She's the best Helia user in the game, certainly one of them. Some people might say Senna, which we'll talk about here in a second. But just very, very good. If you just get to sit there and just do your thing, just stack up your Q so that you get like massive ability haste on all of your abilities, and then you're just stacking up tiers, stacking up Q, and then you just get several items. What the hell? You just get Helia plus tier item, and then you just kind of go from there. You can either go Redemption, you can go Ardent Sensor. There's a lot of things you can do, but she just gets a lot of stats. She has really low cooldowns on all of her abilities. Oh, Moonstone, yeah, for sure. Helia, Moonstone, then you complete your tier item, and then it's kind of off to the races. So you're just spamming your W, putting shields on everybody, healing a ton of people. Helia and your Q is putting up good damage. You do have an ult, which does pretty good damage. Man, these ads are just getting pretty invasive. So you're gonna win. You're gonna hard carry just on stats if you don't get deleted. So you got to be careful against some of these hard engaged champs, against Leona, Nautilus, Rakan, things like that. But you're probably gonna do very, very well into Braum if you just go unchecked. So especially if your team is gonna be doing a lot of 5v5, it's good. She does struggle a little bit if you're having to play around and support a split pushing style, which is increasingly prominent and necessary to actually close out games. She can rotate between lanes with her E pretty easily, but you are kind of a sitting target. When you're doing all these rotations, that opens you up to assassination in the jungle. And you could potentially get outplayed in like a 2v2 situation if somebody like turns on you. So just be careful, but if you can keep her alive, she's going to be very strong. Okay, Nautilus is another one. I haven't personally played Nautilus on this patch. He's not doing great in pro, but he's okay. Similar to a Leona in that pretty hard engage, but he can get away from things potentially if he's able to hook walls and stuff like that. Now, a lot of people know you can do that, so they will usually body block the hook so you can't get out if they can get the position for that. But he's still good. He's got more range than Leona to open up. It's a really fat hitbox, so open field, it's one of the easiest hooks in the game to hit. It can't go over walls, but it can pull you, towards or away from things with those hooks. That's kind of a double-edged sword. He has really low damage early on compared to Leona, though. He's got like an E, he's got his auto attacks, but like Leona with her Sunlight procs does a lot more damage. Braum does a lot more damage. So his damage is kind of lacking. His defensive steroid is also fairly weak for a big tank. You get a little shield. Typically you max that shield second, so you're not getting that much. Especially in the early to mid game, you're going to be pretty squishy. And his baseline stats are squishier than Braum and Leona by a little bit. Now they have nerfed that and changed that. Like Braum used to have a billion armor to start, like 47 or something, and I think Leona did too. But now I believe both of these have been nerfed down to about 36 armor baseline, which is about where Nautilus is. So that's good, but they also have way better defensive steroids, right? Leona has her W, Braum has his big shield and his W, gives extra steroids, and then Nautilus just has like the little HP shield, so he's okay. You know, his big thing is his ult is guaranteed it's going to knock somebody up. Like, it is really good lockdown. So it's like Leona's, but it's a lot more guaranteed. They can't flash out of it. It's a knock up, so Mercury Treads aren't going to help. It is on a bit of a longer cooldown, and it can hit multiple people. When that missile's going through, it can knock everybody else up who's in the way. So less damage, but really, you know, high guarantee of success whenever he uses his ult. So he's pretty good. It's just his stats suck, right? He doesn't have the defense, he doesn't have the offense, but he does have a very good piece of CC that can lock people down with his ult. His auto attacks obviously root people. So I think he's pretty good. I think you can win with him. He's going to be, you know, similar items. Great with the harness, obviously great with Bandle Pipes, harness, and then after that, wherever. Frozen Heart's actually kind of nice on him, so he's one of the few tanks that actually cares about mana. He can go out of mana pretty quickly, especially if you get a lot of points in your E. So I think he's pretty good. Now, Senna is someone that I bumped up here. Now, I've only played against this build, I think, once or twice, but there is a little bit of a goofy build going around with Senna right now. So if you want to try something new and spicy, people have been doing an enchanter type of build on Senna that exploits Helia with this new item, Whispering Circuit. So you'll get a tier early on, and then as you're stacking that, you complete Helia, and then you complete this. So what this does is, once it's not showing it here, but Diadem of Songs, whenever you're in combat for 3 seconds, every second it heals for a very small amount, like 12 healing on somebody. Okay, the nearest ally that's the most hurt. They reworked Helia now to where it saves up to 35% of your damage. Right now, this is before armor and magic resist, so it's like any damage you would deal effectively, as though it was true damage, gets saved into this up to 250. So if you're just walking around in combat, you just keep auto attacking people, then you're going to be stacking this up. And then every second, it's going to be distributing the Helia because it counts as a small heal from you because of this item. Even though it's only a 12 heal, it triggers Helia every second. So if you auto attack somebody for 200, then you're going to be healing one of your allies for 70, right? Right after that. So it's going to be 35% of 200, 70, plus the little small, I guess, 12, 14 heal or whatever. You're going to be healing them for like 80 a second. So like, pretty much it's giving you lifesteal / spell vamp or whatever for your team. 35% of all damage you're doing is being converted over to healing and being distributed to the lowest target without you having to use any additional cooldowns. It's just happening, right? And then obviously if you're hitting them with other stuff, you're hitting them with your W, you hit people with your ult or whatever, that's all good. But even just running around with auto attacks, and you're still getting all of your souls, you're getting a lot of extra damage off of just having the souls. So it can be a lot. I've seen a Senna in the game where I saw this was like getting 4,000 healing off of Helia over time. And then off of that, you can get Moonstone, which is going to increase that healing by an additional 30%, just bouncing around to everybody. And you've still got your Q, which also heals, and can do damage and all that kind of stuff. So this build is pretty obnoxious. Like, it's pretty good. So you're not going to be doing as much damage as another one, but you're still doing like decent damage. You're doing quite a lot of healing just passively. And then you've got a lot of Senna's utility, right? You've got your W that can start fights. You're really fast with swiftness and your Q, and all your passives and stuff like that. You're really hard to catch. You've got your smoke, which is good in a lot of different situations. And of course, you got your global presence with the ult. So I haven't tried it out. I think it could be pretty cool. Ares, another thing, when you constantly are healing people. Now, I don't know if healing off of Helia will trigger this or not. I think it has to be one of your abilities. But nevertheless, like, you're still going to be spreading this around to everybody. So again, as long as you're not going to get hard engaged, it's good. And she's a good matchup into a lot of these kind of just enchanters or more passive lanes that don't have hard engage. You just get to sit there and farm their ADC, right? If they've got a Soraka or something, it's like, okay, yeah, you're not going to be able to kill them probably, but they're also not going to kill you, so you just get to sit there and farm. Very good against Rakan. For Senna is just always a hard matchup. Like, you can deal with it, but like I just described, you can't put a ton of pressure on her early as Rakan. And a lot of times she just gets to farm souls off of you or your ADC for the early game until you get your ult. And she's just annoying to stick to. Like that W, she's fast. The W is really annoying. If she puts her smoke up, it can be hard to get on her as well. So she's an annoying matchup for sure. So if you want to try something out that's an enchanter where you get to stack souls, which is always fun, and you're scaling pretty well to do like okay damage but like really high healing later on, I think she's an interesting choice. I mean, she does have kind of an engage. So sort of like some of these other champs I've talked about, she has a problem getting to the back line if they've got a turbo-fed Jinx. Just going unchecked with a Bandle Pipe user, and you've got Ezreal, that could be an issue, right? But if you just want someone who's got a little bit more durability than like a Sona, a little bit more utility, then it applies a little bit of pressure. I mean, Sona can apply some pressure early, but I think it's good. I think it's got a lot of potential. It's a little bit goofy, but they haven't nerfed this interaction, so this is pretty good. And there are other champs where this can work too. I haven't really experimented too much. I know some people in chat were telling me some other like AP champs were getting this, but I think with Senna, it's got to be the best outside of like Sona for this, because she can run out of mana. She likes to spam stuff, so she doesn't mind getting tier. I mean, this is kind of a dead item. Like, it's cute, but it's not like super efficient in terms of what it does. But it does enable Helia, so that's really the huge perk of it. So anyways, that's the new Senna build. That's the new hotness. If you want to try something new and fresh, that can be cool. Nico in pro play has been pretty good, and I just got a message a little bit ago that the chimney guy is on his way. So I don't know from where, but it'll probably have about 10 or 15 minutes max left on the video. And we're almost at an hour anyways. But Nico, I'm not an expert on Nico. She's doing really well in pro right now. I don't think there's any new items or anything special about her that has changed from last season. So, she's just really sneaky with the minions, especially in solo queue. And those minions are coming out faster and they're moving faster. So, I don't know how that works. I guess you stop with the home guards when you get close to the minions. If you are Nico, you can come up, do little sneak attacks like that. She just goes proto belt, and then after that, some kind of team fight item. If you get something like I think she can go Bandle Pipes. I mean, she's got her E if you want that. And then, of course, she's got her root. So you get Bandle Pipes if you want. Now, she is ranged, so it only gives 20% for 4 seconds. So yeah, a lot of people are going Bandle Pipe second. But, when you hard engage, all you need is 4 seconds to clean them up, probably. Another classic is Frozen Heart, and I was always wondering, why would you do that on like a ranged champion like Nico? And the reason is you can throw your clone into their backline, and it'll just sit there and apply this debuff. So the clone also applies aura debuffs to people. Now, they did change her interaction with when she turns into a cannon minion with a tower. You used to be able to soak a ton of tower hits for free, like a crazy amount, even tankier than like an Alistar on tower dives with Nico last season, but they changed that. So now if a tower hits you and you're Nico, then it knocks you out of a disguise. So she's tricky. I mean, she has okay wave clear, okay poke early, very sneaky, hard engage, lots and lots of just base damage. I think her Q ends up doing like 500 damage if they're stuck in it. Your Tangle Barbs can CC. I think if it hits multiple people, it can CC for like 3 seconds. So you've got your ult. So it does a lot of damage, has a lot of utility. I haven't personally played her very much. I think I played against her. She's okay. She has a hard time getting to the back line, but if you can be sneaky, get some good flanks, she can still be very powerful. Now, Karma is one that I kind of knocked down a little bit from last time. She has a really low win rate for an enchanter. It's like 50%. And I think the main reason is she's just not a good Helia user. I think a lot of the best enchanters right now are going to be good Helia users. And just later on, it's just hard to get damage on people. Like, you're just kind of chucking Qs, hoping to hit them with it. Later on, that ability falls off pretty hard. Your W falls off pretty hard. You have to stay attached to them for like 2 seconds to get the root. An empowered root is a very long root, which is cool. It's also not a stun, so they can keep casting spells and things like that and auto-attacking while they're rooted. But, you know, I just feel like she falls off late game. Like, she can do a big shield. She's just kind of a shield bot later. Just doesn't have any other abilities. But in lane, she's good, right? She can push with her Q really well. She can speed herself up or her allies up with her E. So, you know, she's hard to gank. So, she's okay. But she's kind of... I just think that she's worse off than something like a Sona in solo queue. Or, like, even a Seraphine would probably be better, potentially. I still have her on here because, you know, she can dominate with certain champs if you really, really want to push lanes. But she's been a little bit disappointing. Okay, and then Seraphine's another one who potentially can use Helia. Okay, I haven't seen her that much. She's obviously got a really good AoE ultimate, great team fight champ. Again, the team fights are not happening nearly as much as they used to. It still does kind of happen, but there's a lot more kind of like split pushing and just kind of roaming around. She's not nearly as good in those types of situations. But she can still be reasonably strong. I think Sona's better. I think Sona scales a little bit better. She has way lower cooldowns. Seraphine is a little bit safer, and she provides more like burst protection for her team with a double cast of her W. But she's okay. Melia, I know people love Melio on the channel. I think he can be alright. You can apply some pressure in lane with your W if your ADC takes advantage of that and, you know, really goes for hard trades. He can be alright. Like a lot of other enchanters, I think that he struggles to get to the back line. Now, he can remove a lot of CC and does have a burst heal. So that is good in team fights, especially if the enemy team has a lot of high cooldown, high impact ults that he can negate, right? So like a Mumu ults, Nico ults, stuff like that. He can be really good, but he doesn't have any like super steroids he can put on people, like a Lulu W or things like that. Okay, this cat needs to get out of the road. Okay, I think it'll be out. It's like a neighbor's cat walking around, but I know we've got this service truck coming up. But anyways, so he's all right. Now, he does have a lot of burst protection potential, so if you double cast a shield on somebody in the mid to late game, you know, it's going to be like a 400 shield, and then you can ult, you know, to cleanse them and give more heals. So he does have a lot of burst protection against assassins and things like that, especially if you get a Moonstone early on him, which I would recommend. But he's okay. He can stop some hard engage if you kick the soccer ball at the right time, sort of like a Janna Tornado. Maybe even a little bit better than a Janna Tornado. So he's okay. He's not my style of play. I would rather be, you know, hard engaging or at least playing something that's going to like mega scale if I wanted an enchanter type thing like a Sona or a Senna or something like that. But he's still pretty good. Nami's still alright. Very good with Lucian, obviously. Doesn't scale as hard as some of the other enchanters, but, you know, can put up some pretty respectable damage. For an enchanter, she can play very far back and still be very effective because you're just casting stuff on your allies typically from far away. So you cast your E, you can just throw W on people, have it bounce around. Looks like she's still going Imperial Mandate. I think you could go Bandle Pipes if you wanted to because it does count as a slow coming from you. Looks like a lot of people aren't doing that. But with your E, that would work. But a lot of people, I guess, just kind of go for the all-in damage a little bit more with Imperial. So she's always kind of struck me as like an early to mid-game, like kind of lane bully, pretty decent into the mid-game, but then later on can kind of fall off or doesn't scale quite as well. Still struggles to control vision and things like that, like most enchanters. Doesn't have any great ways to check bushes. You can throw a bubble in there, but anyone with a brain's going to dodge that probably in the bush. So, you know, she's okay. She's like, if you want that lane dominant enchanter, but you still like want to have some stuff in the mid to late game, then she's good. But she's not going to scale as hard as Sona, and then of course she's not going to have as much engage or aggression as some of the tank supports. Then Alistar, similar to a lot of the other ones, I just have him a bit lower. A lot of the other Bandlepipe users, I have him a bit lower because his low engage range, he only can engage at like 500 range, I think, where most of these are like in the 900-ish range. I think Rakan's like W is like 600 or 700 range. So Rakan outranges him a little bit. But these other champs, I think Leona is 900 and Nautilus is like 1,000 or something on his hook. So he's kind of low range, but you know, kind of like Leona, he can go through minions, he can go through other people, so that's handy. If you chain everything together, you know, if you manage to get a knock up, then a knockback, and then a stun with your E, he can have a pretty long CC chain. Obviously, very good at tower diving. That's his main thing, and that's why he's almost always going to be picked more and a little bit more successful in pro, is because he's so good at coordinated tower dives early on, and you just have like a really low economy in pro. You get like almost no items, and he's very good on no items because his ult just gives so much power. Versus in solo queue, where there's going to be a lot more kills going on and you have more items, some champs are just going to do better with more items than Alistar. Like Rakan's going to scale better, Sona definitely will, things like Braum, Senna, all this stuff is going to do better with more items, right? Versus Alistar just has almost no AP scaling, like no shielding, a little bit of healing with his passive that doesn't scale very well. So, you know, he is what he is. He's very good early on, good aggression, but sort of similar to Leona, he's all in on the aggression. He doesn't have as much lockdown CC as Leona does. His cooldowns are way, way longer, and he's not getting out. Once he goes in, he's probably going to die. So, he's alright. He's alright. Now, his point-click W is a good knockback against some other engages, right? So, like, Rakan's trying to go in, if you can time it right, just headbutt him out. That can be good. Or Leona going in, just headbutt her out, so you don't have to worry about hitting skill shots, but you do have to be pretty quick with the timing on the W. Also, if people are trying to just jump on you from a long ways away, like a Zac flying in or something like that, you can headbutt those things out. So you got to have a pretty quick reaction time. But very good against stuff like Rel in pro play, because hers is very telegraphed and it's a slow animation, so it's pretty easy to knock her out of her engage. But he's alright. Other champs, Thresh has been making a bit of a comeback. He's got a fairly high win rate, 53%, so shout out to Mal. I know you love Thresh. Very hard champion to play. You have to play him a ton. Can be frustrating if your team doesn't click on the lantern. Make sure you're always pinging it when you throw the lantern out. But good Bandlepipe user. He's got a lot of different pieces of CC that can trigger that. And then the harness is really nice on him too, because then he can actually go in and disrupt and not get blown up. Usually he's a bit squishier, especially in the early game, than some of these other mega tanks. As the game goes on, if you're getting a ton of souls, he can be just as tanky or even tankier. You have to get, I think, 6 souls on average per level to match the armor scaling of most other tanks. I think most other support tanks get 3 to 4 armor per level, and Thresh doesn't get any, but I think he gets half an armor per soul. And there are more minions coming out, so that's more souls. So I haven't played Thresh in a long time. He is cool. He does have a hard time. I don't know why this shit, like, this weird ad for Norton or something keeps popping up. But, I don't remember where I was going. Oh yeah, he has a hard time getting to the back line. So he's kind of a peeler, disruptor. If you manage to hit your hook on a squishy, that's awesome. But again, that's not going to be as reliable as something like definitely a Nautilus R, but even Rakan and Leona are more likely to be able to get on the back line. But if you just need to peel and just throw out a bunch of hooks and just kind of clog people, you know, he can be good. He does pretty good damage early on too. If you land those hooks, you probably can, you know, fight to the death in a lot of 2v2s. Okay, and that's going to be about it. We're about at an hour 10. You know, Lulu, I have a little bit lower. Just she doesn't scale quite as well as some of the other ones. She has really long cooldowns now. They changed her W where it's 18 seconds at all levels, her polymorph. That's also her attack speed steroid. So that really hurts because it used to be like 12 seconds. And yes, it is a super powerful ability, but it's like, man, that's a long cooldown. I wish they would just lower the time on it. Just make it 1.5 seconds CC, but also go down to like 10 to 12 seconds so she can use it more often. Or move the attack speed steroid over to her E. So when she shields somebody, then they get the attack speed. Maybe that's too strong, I don't know. But the polymorph and the attack speed being your main attractions on one ability, you have to already choose, so you can't get both in a fight, and it's 18 seconds. It's crazy. So I think she's still playable in some matchups with really high scaling ADCs, but like Jinx and stuff like that. But I think it's tough out there. Okay. And that's it, I think, for kind of like newer ones. Janna and Soraka are like okay. I'd probably play Soraka over Janna. I don't know. She's not that great with Helia, but if she goes unchecked, you know, she can just do a ton of healing overall. Really good Moonstone user. Janna's, you know, still a good peeler. Not that great with Helia or some of the other items. I'd probably rather just play Melio than Janna. A big problem with Janna's ult is it pushes people back, but your team has to like stand in the ult, you know, for like 3 to 5 seconds, which a lot of people just won't do. Now it does have that physical pushback, which is cool, but someone like Melio, you just press R and it just works. It's this instant infusion of health. And same thing with Soraka. It's just instant, like everybody's healed, so you don't have to stand in it for as long. Blitzcrank was a little disappointing. I thought that he would be good in this meta against enchanters, but if you land the hooks, it's great. But I don't know. It just feels like maybe I'm just not good enough on him. He's still just kind of like a one hit, one trick, and there's just a lot of mobility in the game, and just with minions constantly like pouring in, there's just a lot less time for you to sit there and fish for hooks under the tower, because the enemy wave's going to be coming back in and clogging it up and blocking you again. So that's kind of frustrating. Lux is okay. I've seen her a few times. I don't think she has that many new toys that really matter that much. She can pressure early, but sort of like I talked about earlier, if you poke somebody out, a lot of times they can just take it back and just home guard in, and they're going to miss a lot less than they used to. So I feel like poke is still okay, but the situations where poke is good, so being oppressive in lane, setting up for objectives, the objectives matter a lot less than they used to. And she's just not really going to thrive in, again, a lot of these like split pick metas, which is what's sort of been evolving now, where you have to have a split pusher to have, you know, any pressure on the game, and that means a lot of rotations between points, fighting over vision, and then that gives you a chance where you might get attacked in the jungle rotating between things. She's not going to be as good there. Pyke seems like he could be good. They increased Umbral, but I just really haven't seen him succeeding too much. But in this kind of split pick meta, it feels like he should be pretty good. But anyways, okay. That's it. Went a little bit longer than I thought. The dude's probably going to be here in a minute. So thank y'all very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. So are there any other cool builds or anything else you've seen popping off that I didn't mention? And come by, check out the stream again, usually around 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll see everyone next time. Have a good day.